All right, so thank you everyone again for joining. I'll try my best to make sure that this information, this session is informative for you. You learn something out of it, and this would be helpful. Uh, yeah, Jignesh, you have raised your hand up. If you have any queries, please feel free to unmute yourself and ask the question that you have. Okay, Manjunath says that he is not able to hear me. Can everyone else hear me, or are you guys not able to hear me? Can someone please confirm? Okay, we can hear you. Thank you,
Yes,
Kalivendra.
we can hear you.
Okay, thank you, Gurvinder. Thank you. You might need to log out and log back in, Manjunath. Um, so Manjunath, I am recording the session. You would not have the option of recording it. It's the presenter, on the Zoom who has the access of recording the session. So I am recording it. It is getting recorded. You might see a recording button on the top left of your screen, seeing something else recording over there. All right, so let's get started. Before we begin, let me tell you about my professional background, so that you guys know that you are talking to the right person. And the next hour, it will be a little informative for you, and you're not going to waste it. So I started off working in 2005. I started off as a desktop engineer, and I was helping US clients, to troubleshoot desktops and laptops over the phone. And then I moved to Windows Server. I was looking after Active Directory 2003, 2008 installation. And in 2010, for the first time, I met VMware. I mean, virtually as a technology, I met VMware. So since 2010, and now we are about to enter in 2023. So yeah, for last 13, 14 years, whatever that number comes to, I have been working on VMware technology dedicatedly. So yeah, you can tell me that I'm a VMware guy, and my core domain has been VMware. Like, there are many core domains. You talk to someone who might be a networking guy, someone might be a Linux guy, someone might be a Windows and AD guy. So I am a VMware guy, right? Since 2010, I have been working on VMware, and I have been into different roles. I'll talk more about it. But yes, VMware has been the epicenter for me. VMware technology is the one, via which I'm able to pay my EMIs and I can, earn my living. It is because of VMware technology. So I started off as a VMware admin. And in 2010, when I joined, I was, like creating virtual machines, creating ESXi's and basics, things. Then I moved on gradually, started upgrading, patching the environment, trying to implement new things. And then I joined VMware, the company VMware. I joined and I became a technical support engineer over there. Then I started, like first you log a case for VMware, right? You have a problem, you reach out to the vendor and you take assistance and you say that, this is not working, help me out. I then went on to the other side. That is, I became the technical support engineer now. And, people would raise cases and, I would get SRs and, we need to work on them, check the log bundle, see what the problem is, and you tell them, how to get it going. Then after doing technical support, I moved into consulting now. So now I do consulting for VMware around VMware technology. So I look after VMware consulting, how the sizing needs to happen, how would you deploy it, how would you go about doing it, which product can help you architecting it, and all that sort of stuff, I look into now. So my name is Vaibhav Gurvinder. Apologies, I did not mention it before. So yeah, I have been around VMware, and so you are in okay hands when it comes to VMware technology. Okay. Now, let me begin by talking about what we are going to do in this session. Okay, let me give you an overlay and a high level of overview what we are going to do in this session so that you have a clear understanding. So I'm going to begin by telling you what virtualization is and what used to happen before virtualization. I mean, virtualization came into effect, if I talk about in production environments, say about 2008 and 2009. However, before 2008 and 2009, you still had servers working, you still had environments, production, and everything was working okay. And you did not have VMware at that point of time. How things used to work before VMware, then what changes VMware brought in, how has been the journey for VMware, which versions, what is the architecture looks like, what are the components of VMware, how does the architecture basically span out, when we talk about a physical environment, when we talk about a VMware environment. And then in the end, I'll do a demo for you where I would install an ESXi. I would show you on how the installation is done, how do you access it, and I'll do a basic session on the installation. And then in the end, I'll talk about that in the course, what we're going to do. So when we learn VMware over a period of 1.5 months and 2 months, what are we going to cover? How is it going to help you? And most importantly, is it really helpful? If I talk about in today's world, wherein everything is important, and the bottom line comes to that, is it going to help me professionally? When you learn a technology, you look at things that, is it going to help me increase my CTC, my package? Will I get a hike in my current salary? Or will I have an opportunity to probably apply in few more companies? I'm going to talk about everything. Okay, I'll show you real examples on LinkedIn on how do you find a job regarding VMware, on Naukri.com regarding VMware, and I'll show you that people are still asking for VMware admins. It's not that I am saying it, so you have to believe me. I'm going to show it to you so that we are on the same page. That on LinkedIn, you do see that people asking for VMware admins to send out their resumes on a specific. Everyone has their email ID. You can send out resumes and you can apply for the opportunity and get good hike also. So I'm going to talk all about that. If you have any queries, any questions at any point of time, my request will be, please feel free to interrupt me. Feel free to unmute yourself and ask the question. Okay. If you would like to post it on chat, feel free. No problems at any point of time. Okay. All right. Make this session a little interactive. My humble request, if you do not have any query, please keep yourself on mute. I'm going to mute everyone now. But in case if you have any questions, feel free to unmute, and yeah, so that we don't get the background sound, and everyone can hear me properly. All right, then let's get started now. So I'm going to share my screen and I'm going to talk about something, okay? And in case if you have any questions, any term that you do not understand, any verbatim that I use that is, that you're not understanding, or if you have any query regarding that, feel free to ask me, okay? Every question is important. Every question is definitely, not a silly question. Never think that any question is a silly question or that's not an important question. Every question is important. Every question should be answered. And if you have any queries, any term, anything that you don't understand, just feel free to interrupt me. Also, before I begin, you are not the first ones, whom I'm teaching VMware, okay? Just to be clear, I have been teaching VMware since 2015. I have taught many folks. I mean, people working in technology domain and telecom sector, people working for Ericsson, so many other companies, Orange, HCL, IBM, you talk about, and I've, given them a session and I've taught VMware. So yeah, you're not the first ones, be sure about it. All right, so I've shared my MS Paint window. I hope you all are able to view it. Now, let me begin by talking about a year, for example, 2003, okay? I intentionally did not keep PPTs because I find PPTs boring. That's the reason I did not keep any PPT. I want to do everything live in front of you so that it is a little interesting for you. Okay. So let me take you back to a year 2003. Okay. Now in 2003, VMware had introduced their product, but it was not being used in the data center. Okay. So what used to happen back in good olden days is that every environment, for example, you take a pharmaceutical company, any company you take like J&J or Novartis, or any other company that you take, every company has basically environments. So you would call them a production environment, you would call them a QA environment, you would call them a test environment, and depending on the budget that the company has, you might have few more environments like development, or you might have a pre-prod. These are few of the environments that you would have. Now, what would happen is that when you have all these environments, now the question comes that why do I have so many environments? There is a simple answer to it. For example, you have one server, okay? This is, for example, an HP server that you have. Now, on this HP server, what would happen is that you would install an operating system, okay? That operating system, let's take an example, is Windows 2003, okay? Now, what would you do is that after installing the operating system, you would install an application. Now, that application can be IIS, it can be a database, it can be an in-house application, it can be, for example, an Exchange server, or there's so many other applications out there. It can be any server on earth that you would like to deploy. Now, what would happen is when you deploy an application, then application is the one which is basically getting you the dollars. It is basically getting you the money. So when we talk about, in an organization, what is the most important thing? It is the application. It is the public website. For example, if I talk about Book My Show, right? So Book My Show, when we go to the website, we book a movie ticket and, we go and watch the movie. But when we go to that website, Book My Show, in the background, there would be so many servers which might be running over there. To get that website running, there might be so many people out there working. And it is not only that, that one URL that is doing everything for us. In the backend, you would have a database, load balancers, making sure that the servers are up and everything is working okay. And then what we see is, as an end user, we only see, we go to that URL, we book a website, and that is it. Now, if that website, Book My Show, is not available, it is a financial loss to the company. Company is losing money every minute because the website is not up. You cannot book a ticket. You will look for alternatives. You will go to pvrcinemas.com, or you will go to Give My Ticket Please, or any other portal you would go to, and you would buy the ticket from there. So you are actually, so Book My Show is basically losing money every minute, if that application is not available. Same is applicable with every company. Every company has an application which is a very mission critical application, and that application has to be online, right? I can give you examples in my journey. For example, I was working for a music company wherein Norah Jones would do the functions in UK, and they had this website wherein they would book tickets and do a publicity that Norah Jones is doing a concert, and you can buy a ticket. Where do you go? And they would have these small videos over there, and Norah Jones asking everyone, to come to their show, and all that would happen. So that is a production website, and that website cannot go down. If it goes down, then company is losing money because they are counting on that website that people would go in, would check out the video, the fans of Norah Jones, they will buy a ticket, they'll come to the concert, and everything. There's an ecosystem, like Norah Jones has to be paid, all the people in the background, they have to be paid, and everyone else has to be paid. So that website is up. Okay, in a nutshell, applications are important. In your environment, the most important thing that you have is your application. Now, when this application is live, when this live is in production, okay, if you have to make any changes onto the server, for example, I say that, on this server, I need to install an update, I need to patch it, I need to upgrade it, I need to do some activity on the server. So you would just not go ahead and do any changes on the production server, because what if the change that you're going to do might bring down the server? It is not good enough. Anything goes wrong with the server, or the application crashes. So how would you verify? How would you check that? That is why you have different environments. So you have a production, then you have a QA, test, development, and pre-prod. So what you basically do is that you have a server in every environment. So you have a server in production, you have a server in QA, in test, in development, and in pre-production. So you would have one physical server, if it's an HP, Dell, whichever is your, I would say the preferred vendor. Every company has a preferred vendor. So my last client whom I was working for, their preferred vendor was HP. So if anything they had to buy in technology, they would first reach out to HP and ask them that, can you provide us that component, that hardware, that software? If HP can give it, that was the end of the story. They do not have to look outside. So every company has a preferred vendor, whom they reach out to, and they would, ask for the hardware and all from there. So what would happen is, in a typical organization, you would have many environments, and in every environment, you would have a server machine. You would have a physical box server wherein the same configuration will be there. So if on this server you have 16 GB of RAM, and for example, you had a Xeon, some Xeon processor, for example, 2000 series Xeon processor you had, I'm just taking an example. So you would have the same configuration over here as well, 16 GB RAM, and you would have that Xeon server of 2000 series. Same would be applicable over here, same would be applicable over here and here. Because what you're going to do is that if you have to make any change on your environment, the change would first go over here in the test environment. Then it will go into development, then it will go into QA, then it will go into pre-prod. Finally, when you are happy looking all your 4 environments, that whatever changes you have done, the server, the application, the operating system, they all remain consistent, there is no problem with it, then in the end, you would make the change on your production, because you have already seen that how the other systems are behaving for you, and then only you would do it on the production. This is how it is, when it comes to any environment. I've seen many environments, and all of them, follow the same pattern. No one would deploy any patch directly on the production. You have to go through a phase, and after every phase, you wait for at least 2 or 3 weeks. So for example, you deploy a patch on test, you wait for at least 3 weeks. Then you deploy it on development, you wait for 3 weeks. Same is applicable with everyone. So that you deploy the patch, you see how the server is behaving, and then you move on to the next one. And then you go finally in the production, making sure that yes, now when you deploy that patch, your website is not going to go down and everything is going to stay up. Okay. Now, this was the behavior when we did not have virtualization. Now, everything used to work. There were no concerns with it, but this was not a scalable option. When I say scalable, I mean that it could not grow. There were a lot of challenges with it. Now, what are the challenges in this environment? Let me talk about it. Okay. The first challenge is CapEx, which is capital expenditure. Okay. You call up HP right now, you call up Dell right now, okay? You tell them that you are looking for a server with, some basic processor with about 200 GB of RAM, or maybe, with 100 GB of RAM, normal hard drives, redundant hard drives, and, a basic warranty of 3 years. The server guy is going to tell you about 3 or 2 lakhs of rupees, that it would cost you to buy one server. So when you have so many environments, development, QA, prod, pre-prod, for every environment, you have to buy one box. When you're buying that box, you have to pay money for it. Who is going to pay for it? We are not going to pay from our salaries. It is the company who has to pay for it. So for company, it is an upfront cost that they have to pay, and which is CapEx, which is capital expenditure that they have to make. Okay. Now, with time, in an organization, you have many applications. Okay. So you would have application regarding databases, then you would have websites, then you would have internal file servers, and then you would have AD servers. So many, servers would be out there. So for every application, you would basically have one dedicated box. Now, with time, what would happen is these boxes keep rising up. The number of physical boxes that you have, they run into hundreds, and if required, they run into thousands, depending on your client's budget. When you have 1,000 physical boxes, you cannot expect one guy to do everything for you. You need people to maintain it, right? Because on some server, every day, you would have either the CMOS battery dying, you would have one hard drive dying, you would have a power supply which would go off, you would have some other alert or message coming up on the server machine that has to be taken care of. Then you call up HP, get that part logged in. So they would send a part, an engineer would come, you need to arrange access for that engineer. when he's there, in your data center, you are with them, so that they can get the access, and everything has to be done. So one guy would not be able to do it. And then you have to take that into account. What if that guy falls sick? What if that guy takes a leave? There has to be someone looking after it. So you need people. The more number of physical boxes you have, the more number of people you need to have. I know environments where we had an army of people, making sure that the servers are up and everything is working okay. Now that is again an expenditure to the company, which is OPEX, which is operational expense. Okay, you buy an elephant, that's good, but then you have to feed the elephant, make sure that the elephant is always up and running. That's another story. Okay. Now the other problem was regarding lifecycle manager. Now, what is lifecycle manager? Lifecycle manager means when you buy a server, for example, you buy an HP server. And for example, I'm just giving you a hypothetical example. You bought the server in 2014. Okay, you bought this HP server in 2014. Now we are in 2022, end of 2022. Okay, now you call up HP and you tell them that the server that I had bought in 2014, I would like to install Windows 2022, the latest operating system. Or for example, you say you want to install Red Hat Linux 9, the latest one, on this old server which you bought in 2014. So in every server, that when you install an operating system, you need to have drivers, firmwares, all those components are required. HP will say that, sorry, I cannot give you drivers and firmwares for these latest servers because your server is end of life. End of life means when you buy a hardware from HP, it only comes with a life expectancy of 5 years. HP says, or any other vendor would say, that after 5 years, you should throw away this box and get a new one. Okay. LCM means whenever your server, your physical machine is older than 5 years, throw it away and get a new one. This is what vendor is saying. Okay. Now, if you have thousands of boxes in your environment, at least 5 or 10 boxes every year would be, like getting end of life, because you do not buy 1,000 boxes at one time. You would buy 50, 60 boxes, then you would, start using them. Then after 6 months, you would have a requirement, you will buy another box. And, this is the way the process continues. So in a typical organization, you would always find at least 5 or 10 machines in a year which are going end of life, which is you throw away the boxes, get new ones, get the new ones racked and stacked, and then you start the process. Okay, this is what LCM is. Now, when you are throwing away the server, in a normal typical household, what would happen is, if you are getting newspapers, I'm very sure that everyone would have seen it. If when we give the newspapers away, that guy gives us some money. He's going to count how many kilos of newspaper are you giving it to him, and then he would take that away and he will give you some money, right? For example, 5 rupees, 10 rupees per kg, whatever the amount is, you always get something back when you give out something. Over here it is different. I have done this activity, in a data center. That is why I'm telling you. When you throw away a server, for example, this server, when you, say that you want to throw it away, you will have to give money. You will not get anything in return. Okay, so disposing of any server, when you have to dispose any server, it is the company again who has to pay the money. You will not get anything in return. It's not that you're giving up, such a big box, or you're giving up such a big Cisco router, and you would think that that disposal guy would give you some kind of money or a discount coupon or a voucher. Nothing would happen. You have to give the money. Okay, so you buy the server, use it for 5 years. When you have to dispose it, again you have to pay it, because you just cannot dispose the server anyway. It is not that you pick up the server and you go to the garbage bin wherever it is in the city and you go and keep it over there. No, that's not allowed. It has to be properly disposed. There are vendors who are certified in disposing a hardware. You only can dispose it with them, because you would have an IT audit. An IT audit, the auditor will ask you, okay, what did you do about the last server? So you show them that the last server was disposed, XYZ was the vendor, here is an approval, here is a PDF confirming that they have taken the server, they have disposed it properly. So that is how it needs to be done. Okay. The other problem comes is about data center charges. Now, what are data center charges? So we understand that, when you have to keep a server, you would not be able to keep the server in your office environment. You would only be able to keep it in a data center. Data center is a typical place, where all these servers are racked and stacked, because in a data center, you have power, electricity, cooling, and, all the other, everything is required. So what would happen is that you need to keep it in a data center. Now in a data center, we have typically called we have something called as a rack. We have a data center rack. So in a data center rack, you would go ahead and rack and stack your device. Okay, you would mount your device on a data center rack. Now the more number of racks you have, okay, if you have 1,000 servers, so then you need a lot of racks, because all 1,000 servers cannot be accommodated in one rack. You need to have so many racks, wherein you're going to place your servers. And when you buy so many racks, then you have to pay for the data center as well. I mean, you have to pay the data center wherever you are in the world. For example, if you're in US, you might have a data center with AT&T, for example. If you are in, other parts of the world, you would have a data center, any data center provider, and you have to pay them. Okay. Now, I know a client of mine used to pay every month $25,000, for one data center to AT&T in Atlanta. I visited that data center and I have seen that, and I've even seen the bill, that used to come to the client. $25,000 per month they would pay to keep, the servers in the data center, the space that they had taken, the electricity, cooling, internet, whatever you take from the data center as a resource, you have to pay for it. Okay, so this was the amount, that they were paying every month. So the more number of servers you have, the more you need to pay to the data center, and to all the other all these points that I talked about. Okay, now these problems, what we are seeing over here, is not limited to one company. It's not that only any pharmaceutical company would run into this issue, or any insurance company would run into this issue, and the retail clients would not run into this issue. Everyone would run into this issue, because you do not have virtualization. You only had physical boxes, and this is the way it would be. Okay, so what was the solution to all these problems? So the solution to all these problems was one word called hypervisor. Okay, now what is hypervisor? Okay, officially it says that hypervisor is an application or an operating system which can run multiple virtual machines on one box. Okay, let me explain you what basically it means. Let me draw the diagram for you. It will become easier for you. So this is my physical box. Okay, for example, this is my physical box, and you can think of it any company, Dell, HP, IBM, Fujitsu, whichever one is your favorite, that is the server over here that we have. In a physical environment, what you would do is that on this physical machine, you would directly install your operating system. For example, if it's Red Hat, okay, or if it's Windows, so you would install that operating system directly on the hardware. This is what you would do. Okay, and then on top of this operating system, you would run your application. So for example, if you had to run Nginx over here, so you would run your Nginx, and then you would have your website up and running. If it was Windows, you could have any other application like database or IIS, whatever you can think of. So one physical box having one operating system, and then you have one application. This is the way it looks like in a physical environment. So when I talk about a physical environment, this is the way it would look for you. Okay, now let me come to the virtualized environment. So now what we are going to do is that we have a server. Again, it can be any server that you have, HP, Dell, IBM, Fujitsu, whatever you like. And now what we are going to do is, instead of installing the operating system, which is Red Hat or Windows, what I'm going to do is I'm going to install a hypervisor over here. Okay. Now this hypervisor will give me the capability to create virtual machines. So I would create VM01. On this VM, I would install an operating system, and then I would install an application. Okay, then I would create VM02. Again, on this
Hypervisor also needed, right? One physical base operating system.
No, hypervisor is a complete operating system. Like for example, if I give you a laptop and I ask you that, you need to install Windows 10 on that laptop. So what you will do is that, you will get a bootable CD, you will install Windows 10 or Windows 11 on that bootable CD, on that USB, sorry, and you will plug that USB directly to the laptop, and then you will start Windows 10 installing it. Because Windows 10 has everything in it, which is required to run an operating system, processes, threads, everything it has. It is a complete package, which can run the operating system. Same is applicable with hypervisor. It is a complete operating system. It has everything in it, to call itself as an operating system. So you install hypervisor directly on the hardware itself. You do not need to have any operating system installed, or you need to boot from a floppy CD and before you install it. Okay, does that answer your question?
Okay, but where will get that is a hypervisor OS?
Sure, I'll tell you everything about it. Just give me 10 minutes and you will have your answer. Okay, just give me 10 minutes.
Thanks.
Thank you. All right, so I've installed a hypervisor. I've installed it directly on my hardware. I am creating virtual machines on it. Every virtual machine has its own operating system, and then I go ahead and install the application on it. Okay, now this operating system can be Windows, this can be a Linux. I can then have another VM over here, which can run Fedora, for example, and I can have my another application over here. Now, all these operating systems, they will think as if they are the only ones. Like when you install an operating system, it thinks that it has the entire control of the hardware. It is the only one which was running on the hardware, and it has entire access to the RAM, to the hard drive, to the CPU, to the networking resources. It thinks it is the only one, who can avail all of them. Same is applicable over here as well. The hypervisor will fool, basically I should say, it will fool all of them to think that they are running alone. The operating system, Red Hat, Windows, Fedora, CentOS, they would not get to know that they are running on a VMware platform or they are running on a virtual platform. They will think that they are running on a physical platform, and the whatever resources they have been assigned, it is only dedicated for them. So over here, I can give RAM, for example, 16 GB. I can give RAM over here 25 GB, 8 GB, whatever I feel like, I can give that way. Okay, so this is the basic architectural difference, when it comes to physical and virtual environment over here. In virtual environment, you have hypervisor, which is running directly on the physical machine, and then you create virtual machines. Every virtual machine has its own operating system, application, and it works independently. Any doubts, confusion, questions so far anyone has? Anything which is not clear to you, feel free to unmute yourself and ask the question. Remember, guys, this session is for you, okay? So it is important that you understand.
Hello, sir, this is Subhashini.
Hey, Subhashini.
Sir, how it will share the resources like physical resources? How it will know the OS? How it will know how to share that resources like CPU or hardware? How it will know that OS? If it is one is there, no, we can manage. But 3 is there, no, how it will manage that? Okay, I want to take this much of amount data. How it will know that one?
Brilliant question, Subhashini. Thank you so much for asking.
Yes, sir. Actually, I'm certifying that VMware certification course. That's why I'm asking.
Great, Subhashini. Thank you so much that you asked.
Oh,
I just need 5 more minutes, and you will have the answer to your question. Just give me 5 more minutes.
Thank you.
Sorry to interrupt. Even I was having the same question. Thanks, Subhashini, for asking.
No problem, guys. Just give me 5 more minutes and you will have answer to this question. Any other question that anyone has so far, what we have discussed, feel free to unmute yourself and ask.
How many virtual machines can be created?
Fantastic, Mugdha. Thank you so much for asking. We again are going to talk about it. Let me write these questions down, okay?
Okay, thank you.
How many VMs? How will the VM get to know about the resources? Okay, great. Anyone else has any questions?
Sir, Pawan this side.
Hey, Pavan.
Actually, how it is communicating between hypervisor and OS?
Fantastic. Fantastic. Thank you for asking. I'm loving all these questions. Thank you. Keep them coming. Okay.
Yes.
Anyone else?
Yeah, with single box, we are installing 3 OS and 3 application. So one physical machine which goes down, all the 3 OS will down and applications also will be lost, right?
That is correct. So what we do to maintain high availability, I will definitely talk about it. Good question. Thank you for asking.
Okay. One more thing, hypervisor also will get as a ISO file.
Yes.
Okay.
It comes in an ISO file. I'll show you from where you can download it.
Okay, thank you.
Show how to download ISO.
Hello, Manjunath. I'm having a question. Shall I ask?
Go ahead, please.
Yeah. So you have mentioned as the hypervisor and OS. So what is the difference between the hypervisor OS and like, which is similar to Windows or Linux, which is like?
I'll talk more about hypervisor. Sure.
Yeah.
Yep. Go ahead.
So you talked about the hypervisor. So hypervisor, I think there are 2 types of hypervisor. One is for Windows hypervisor and one for the VMware. So what would be the difference in between?
Fantastic. You are asking all the questions that I wanted to talk about. Thank you so much for doing this. Gurminder, I need 5 more minutes. Okay. And then you will have answer to your question.
And also talk about the storage, how the storage will be shared. In this.
Absolutely. No problem. I'll be more than happy to talk about it.
Yeah, sure. Thank you.
No problem. Any other question anyone has?
Hi, Kancham here. I would like to understand more about network part in VMware.
Absolutely. I'll talk more about it.
Thank you.
No problem. Anyone else?
Hello. Good morning.
Hey, morning.
Yes, I'm interested in actually understanding the storage part of it. Is there any training that we assist us with storage, like something like NetApp storage or SAN storage?
Okay, sure. So
do you understand what I'm saying? Because like in my environment, we are using VMware, ESXi, then on NetApp storage.
Okay.
Yes, and also using Cisco UCS.
Okay.
So for memory.
Okay.
CPU and the memory.
Sure.
We are using it, yes. So I don't know because VMware is not totally independent. You have to have a separate storage system for it, as it doesn't have its own storage.
Correct.
So that's why I'm asking, is it?
Sure, I'll definitely talk more about it on how, we get the storage integrated, on what we do. So I would not be talking, I would not be training you on storage. For example, if I talk about, there's a Dell storage, there is an HP storage, how that storage would exactly work. I have never been a storage admin in my life. However, I can tell you that how that storage integrates with ESXi. How do we present that storage to ESXi? When you see that storage on ESXi, what we do, how we configure it, how we extend it, how we unmount it, and all the operations around it, I will be definitely talking about it. However, we do not have a physical storage wherein I can show you that on how storage works or, how the configuration looks like. That capability we do not have. However, when it comes to ESXi, I'll show you everything.
Yes.
Okay.
Hi, Vaibhav. This is Gaurav.
Hey, Gaurav. Go ahead.
Actually, I'm working for the Asbit, the Netherlands company. So basically, we have the two hypervisor machine, like Hyper-V in Hyper-V. That is a which one? that is installed on the physical hardware. Another one is just ESXi, which we can take the graphical user interface. So I just want to know that what is the difference between them?
Between Hyper-V and ESXi?
Yes, yeah.
Sure, I will definitely talk about it. No problem.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Yeah.
No problem. Any other query anyone has?
Is Hypervisor is a hardware independent or dependent? How it is? We require separate hardware for this installing.
I'll talk about it. Thank you. Good question. I'll talk about it.
Hi, this is Bhushan.
Hey, Bhushan.
See, yeah, that hypervisor would be installed on any hardware. So that hardware is having certain capacity. So it might reach, means if we create multiple, VMs. So is that expandable or what? Means can we?
Yeah, so you can have another hardware. You can have one more machine in your environment.
Again, we need another hypervisor and we need to create.
Correct. Every physical machine that you buy would have some limit, and only on that limit, you would be able to create the VMs. And then you need to, buy one more machine. Like as you are growing, you would need more, machines also to help you out.
Okay.
I'll talk more about this. Okay, I'll talk more about it.
Just one more question, Vaibhav.
Sure.
Yeah, actually, if our virtual machine is broken, right? We're not able to open the virtual machine. In like, if we have the VMware setup there, and we're not able to open the virtual machine, then what we do?
Sure. I'll talk more about what would happen in those scenarios. Fine, no problem.
Yeah, thank you so much, Vaibhav. Thank you so much.
No problem. All right, guys. So if you have any other queries, keep them coming on the chat. So I do see on the chat, there are a few queries, the difference between VMware and Workstation. How do we perform the activities? Sure, I'll talk more about these. Okay. All right, so let me begin with the questions now. I already have a good amount of list that I have to look into. Let me begin by answering all these questions. Okay. Now, okay, I'm going to, okay, thank you for going on mute. Thank you, everyone. All right, then. So let me get going now. So this is a basic architecture that I was explaining you, difference between a physical and a virtual. Okay. Now let me begin by talking about hypervisor. Okay. So when I talk about a hypervisor is basically one term. Like in today's world, we have a term called cloud. Okay. Everyone can give the functionality of cloud. HP can give you cloud functionality. VMware can give you Azure, AWS. Every company on earth can give you cloud functionality. Same is applicable with hypervisor. It is only a term. Okay. Hypervisor means that if you have one physical machine, for example, if you have one physical machine, and this is, for example, an HP server that you have. So what hypervisor will do is that hypervisor will get installed directly on this server. So you install hypervisor directly on the server, and then hypervisor over here, when you install it, gets the control of the hardware. So Subhashini had a question that how we would get to know that how the resources are being given to everyone and how they would have the control. Basically, in a physical environment, what would happen is, in a physical environment, when you deploy a Windows machine or when you deploy a Linux machine, okay, on your hardware, that Linux machine has the control of the hardware. CPU, memory, RAM, hard drive. This Linux machine has the complete control. Over here, what we are doing is we are installing a hypervisor directly on the hardware. So who has the control now? It is the hypervisor. Hypervisor has the complete control. Okay. Now, basically, hypervisor is you have one big box and you are running multiple operating systems in it. Okay. Windows, Linux, Red Hat, Fedora, Windows 7, Windows 10. Okay. Any operating system or an application which can give you this functionality, that is on this one box, you can run multiple virtual machines. That is called hypervisor. Okay. Hypervisor is basically a term which means that on any physical box, you can run multiple operating systems, any application, any operating system which can give you that functionality, wherein on one box you can run multiple operating systems. That is called hypervisor. Okay, this is the definition. Now, if I talk about hypervisor, hypervisor is basically available in two versions. Okay, or I should not say versions, I should say types. So there's something called as a type 1 hypervisor. Okay, when I talk about hypervisor, there's something called as type 1. What is type 1? Think about type 1 as a complete operating system. Okay, this is a complete operating system. Like I was giving you the example, if you have to install Windows 10 on a laptop, what will you do? You will burn the Windows 10 ISO on a USB, plug the USB to the laptop and install Windows 7 or Windows 10 directly on the laptop. You do not need any other application. Same is applicable over here as well. That is, what would happen is that you have an ISO. You have an ISO for type 1 hypervisor. Okay. And then what would you do is that you would install that ISO directly on the hardware. So this ISO gets installed directly on the hardware. Okay, so this is, for example, your HP server. Here you install your type 1 hypervisor. So type 1 hypervisor is installed directly on the hardware. Okay. And then on top of this, you go ahead and create virtual machines on it. Okay. So Subhashni, to answer your question, hypervisor is the one who has the control for CPU, memory, RAM, and hard drive. Okay. Hypervisor has the capability, it has the processes, and then it will go and give CPU to every other machine. When we create a virtual machine, we have options of defining that how much RAM you will get access to. For example, I tell over here that VM04, you will only get 12 GB of RAM. Okay. On this VM04, I install Windows, for example, 2008 operating system. Okay. So when this operating system boots up, this operating system will think that I have only 12 GB of RAM. Okay. And this is because while creating virtual machine, I specifically intentionally specified that Windows 04 will only get a maximum of 12 GB RAM. Now, who will make sure that this Windows VM04 cannot get 13 GB or maybe 16 GB of RAM? It will only get what has been specified. This is something that hypervisor will make sure. Hypervisor is the one which will make sure that whatever you have specified while creating the virtual machine, that virtual machine will only get that amount of resources. Okay, it has inbuilt processes within the hypervisor that will make sure that virtual machine only gets what you have defined. Subhashni, does that answer your question?
Yes, sir. But it is personal, it's okay. But when we are going to the data centers, no, how it will manage if it is a e-commerce website or something is there? They need 14 GB only, 14 GB they want. If you are telling 12 GB for one virtual machine, they need 14 GB. How we will cost that virtual machine? Like if they are taking that whole virtual machine will waste the storage, no? How it will manage?
So what would happen is if you have a VM, for example, you're creating a virtual machine, for example, VM01, and you will be deploying Red Hat, for example, on it. Okay. Now it is you as the administrator who has to define that how much memory should be given over here. Okay. If you define 12 GB, it only gets 12 GB. If you know that your application will need 18 GB of RAM, you give 18 GB of RAM.
Okay.
So whatever you define, correct. It is you who need to plan as a VMware admin. You need to talk to the application owner, check with them that how much RAM is needed. Whatever you define, operating system will get only that much. In my laptop, if I have 8 GB RAM, my laptop cannot get 9th GB of RAM because my laptop only has 8 GB of RAM. Same is applicable over here as well, Subhashni. If you give 8 GB RAM, it only gets 8 GB. You give 80 GB, it gets 80 GB. You give 800 GB, it gets 800 GB.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
No problem. All right. Now moving on So we understand what a type 1 hypervisor is. So type 1 hypervisor is the one you install directly on the hardware. Okay, and then you create virtual machines of it. Now we have something called as a type 2 hypervisor as well. What is a type 2 hypervisor? So the type 1 hypervisor, I told you, it is one operating system. Think about it when I said type 1 hypervisor as an operating system. Now, when I talk about type 2 hypervisor, think about it as an application. Okay, for example, I tell you that I want to watch a movie on my laptop. Okay, I have a movie file and I want to watch that movie, and I ask you, you tell me a software via which I can watch movie. Everyone will have their own choices. Someone will say that download VLC. VLC is a software that you install on Windows and you can watch a movie. Now, is VLC a complete operating system? No. Okay, it is not an operating system. Can I run directly on the hardware? No. I need an operating system. For VLC to work, it is paramount, it is important that I need to have an operating system. Once I have an operating system, then only I can watch movie via VLC. Okay, so operating system is definitely required because VLC is an application. It is not an operating system. Okay, same is applicable with a type 2 hypervisor. A type 2 hypervisor, think about it, it is an EXE file. So when you download VLC, or if you download Firefox, if you download Chrome browser on a Windows machine, they come in a format .exe. So you double click on that file, you run it, you install it, and then you go ahead and do your job. Same is applicable with a type 2 hypervisor. This is my home machine, and let me show you my home machine. Okay, so on my home machine, what I have done, I love Iron Man. Okay, so I'm a big fan of it. FYI. Okay, so what I've done is that this is my Windows 10 operating system. Okay, so if I show you on where I have it. Okay, where it is now. Yep. So if I come over here and if I show you, I'm running Windows 10. Okay, now over here on Windows 10, I have installed a type 2 hypervisor, which is my VMware workstation.
Sorry to interrupt, but we can see only MS Paint.
Oh, thank you. My bad. Please allow me 1 minute. Thank you for highlighting that. Oops, now you can see it?
Yeah, now it's visible.
Okay, so you need to see my Iron Man again. Okay, sorry. Yeah, so this is my home machine. Okay, I have RDP to my home machine. This is my home IP. So I am running Windows 10 over here. This is my Windows 10 machine. And if I show you the applications installed on my machine, you would see that I have installed VMware Workstation. Okay, VMware Workstation is a type 2 hypervisor. Okay, it is basically an EXE file, that you download and then you run it. Okay, so it needs an operating system. Okay, and then when you have installed VMware Workstation, then what you do is you go ahead and create virtual machines. This is the way you then go ahead and create so many virtual machines you can create in your environment. But again, type 2 hypervisor is an EXE. How do you view it? So you go to over here, you go to here, and this is, you see VMware Workstation. This is an EXE file of 600 MB around. You need to just download it from VMware and then you can install it. So if I show you the architecture over here, basically the architecture it looks like is that you have one physical machine. Okay, you have one physical machine. And then on that physical machine, you go ahead and install Windows 10. Okay, for example, I've installed Windows 10. Now on this Windows 10, let me change the color. On this Windows 10,
sorry
I
for
installed. Yeah, go ahead.
Sorry for interrupting, Weber. But just one question I need. I ask. This one is the type 2 hypervisor, right? And that is Workstation Pro.
Correct.
And one is we have the inbuilt hypervisor, that is Hyper-V.
Sure, I'll get to that. Just give me 5 minutes.
Both are the same?
No, I'll get to it. Okay. Give me 5 minutes. Okay. Yeah. Thank you. So I have this HP server over here. On this HP server, I installed Windows 10. And then on Windows 10, I installed my type 2 hypervisor, that is VMware Workstation. And now I go ahead and create virtual machines on it. Okay. Type 1 hypervisor, basically you use in production. So if I talk about type 1 hypervisor is always used in production. You know, when you have production, absolutely mission critical servers that you want to run, you go with type 1. When do you go with type 2? When you want to learn, test, you know, just play around, understand more about the product. Okay, understand more about it. Then you go with the type 2 hypervisor. Type 2 hypervisor is not meant to be run into production. Okay, if you have a client who is running production on a type 2 hypervisor, you need to change your job. Okay, you don't want to work for that client. Okay, you definitely want to get a new job. Okay, so again, type 1 hypervisor gets installed directly on the hardware. Type 2 hypervisor gets installed on an operating system. Because it is an EXE file, it is not a complete operating system. Are we good with type 1 and type 2 hypervisors so far, or anyone has any question around it? Okay, so
in center we use only type 1, right?
In production,
type
always type 1. In lab, type 1, type 2, whatever your budget suits you.
Okay.
Okay.
In
So let
production,
me,
type 1.
correct. Okay. So let me clear this question now on type 1.
Quick question.
Hypervisor. Yeah.
VMware Fusion, can I say VMware Fusion as
It's a type 2 hypervisor which can run on a Mac.
Yeah, because
VMware
I got some
Workstation.
suggestions.
VMware
Yeah.
Workstation is basically for Windows. If you have Mac, what you do, you get VMware Fusion. It is again a type 2.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. Now, moving on to the next part of the question. The next question that we had is how many VMs you can run. Okay. Now let me answer this quick question. So for example, okay, before we get over there, let me clarify one more thing. From VMware, I will be focusing on VMware. Okay. So VMware gives me a type 1 hypervisor, which is called ESXi. Okay. Type 2 hypervisor is VMware Workstation for Windows and Linux, and Fusion for Mac operating system. Okay. What does ESXi stand for? What is the full form? Elastic Sky X. Okay. Don't ask me that why did the name such a way? God knows about it. Elastic Sky X. I means integrated. That is what it means. ESXi, Elastic Sky X integrated. Okay, what used to happen before, all these questions come later, not right now. Okay, so VMware gives me a type 1 hypervisor, which is called ESXi, and a type 2 hypervisor, which is basically VMware Workstation and Fusion. Okay. Now, let me answer the question, how many VMs we can run on a physical machine? Okay. So we go back to the drawing board, and for example, this is my HP server. Okay, or Dell server or IBM server, whatever you feel like. And on this HP server, for example, just to keep things simple, I have 100 GB of RAM. Okay, you have servers, you know, wherein you can have 2 TB of RAM. Just to keep things simple, I am going with 100 GB of RAM. Okay, now what I have done is that on this physical machine, I will go ahead and I will install ESXi, which is my type 1 hypervisor. Okay, now what I will do is that I will go ahead and create a virtual machine on it. VM01, I will install Windows operating system on it, and I would install IIS as my application. Then I have a second virtual machine, VM02. I install Red Hat on it, and I install Apache. I have VM03. I install Red Hat on it, and I have Nginx on it. And then I go ahead and install VM04. I install Windows on it. I have SQL database installed on it. Every virtual machine over here has 25 GB of RAM. When I was creating the virtual machine, at that time, I specified that I will be giving 25 GB of RAM to every virtual machine. This is what I specified during creation of virtual machine. So this operating system will see only 25 GB, and same will be applicable with every other operating system. Whatever we define, only that amount of resources they can see. Okay. Now, question is, can I create a fifth virtual machine over here? VM05 with Windows operating system, again a SQL server, and I give 25 GB of RAM. Yes, no, maybe. Can I create a fifth virtual machine? Yes, no, maybe. What do you guys think?
Yes, we can. Yes.
How many people say no, we cannot?
We can decreasing other configuration, so we can go for additional.
Great, you do not have to even decrease it, okay? So yeah, the answer is yes, you can create a fifth virtual machine over here with 25 GB of RAM. Now the question will come from where, yeah, go ahead.
What about the CPU performance if you are installing this much of
Good question, Shubhashini. I just need 10 minutes. Okay, just give me, you will have your answer. Just give me 10 minutes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, someone had any query?
If you have DRS environment, that time you can create.
No, we are not talking about DRS right now. That's going to confuse everyone. I'm just going to stick to simples. After this session, we can talk definitely more about all the, advanced functionalities that you would like to, and I'll be more than happy, but not right now. Okay. I'll definitely talk about it in the end. Okay. This is only not to confuse everyone. I hope you understand. Thank you.
Just one question, ever.
If
we create the fifth virtual machine, then I think that if all the virtual machine will run simultaneously, crash the whole system.
Give me 10 minutes. You will have your answer. Give me 10 minutes.
Yeah, sure.
Okay, thank you. Now, I am creating a fifth virtual machine. Can I create it? The answer is yes, I can create it. How would it work? Okay, how will it get 25 GB of RAM? Because you have already given 25, 25, 25, 25, that is 100 GB of RAM. You have already specified on the 4 virtual machines. So how on earth are you giving 25 GB of RAM extra? Because on your physical machine, you only have 100 GB of RAM. The answer is about utilization. For example, this virtual machine that I have over here, I have provisioned 25 GB. Yeah.
Actually, if we are going to the given to 100 GB and for the 4 machine, so what about the parameter hardware? It's also will needed a RAM or a processor or not?
Absolutely, it also needs it. You are bang on target. Just give me 5 minutes, you would have your answer. Okay. I mean, just give me 5 more minutes. You will have your answer. Very good point that you raised, by the way. Good. Thank you. All right. So if I created VM01 and I gave 25 GB of RAM, okay, it might not be using all the 25 GB of RAM. For example, if I show you my machine that I have over here, on my machine, I have, where did it task manager go? Yeah. So on my machine, come on my machine, I have 16 GB of RAM. But am I using 16 GB of RAM? No, I'm only using 10 GB of RAM. Okay. Same is applicable with every operating system. When you give 25 GB of RAM, will it always be using 25 GB of RAM? No, it might use 12 GB, it might use 13 GB. So for example, I say this is using 12 GB of RAM. This is using 13 GB of RAM. This is using 8 GB of RAM, and this is using 10 GB of RAM. Okay. Everyone has a less utilization to what they have been given. Okay. So I gave 25 GB, but they are not using all of them. Now, who has the control of resources? Who is the one in charge of managing the RAM? It is ESXi. Okay. Now, ESXi knows that I have provisioned, that is, I have given 100 GB of RAM to all these 4 virtual machines over here, but they're not using it. They are only using, say, about 50 GB of RAM or 40 GB of RAM. So my utilization over here at the physical 100 GB shows only 40 GB. How much I am actually using is only 40 GB because the other is not getting utilized. Okay, so what I can do, I can create a 5th virtual machine, I can create a 6th virtual machine, I can create a 7th virtual machine, 8th, 9th, 10th. I can create that virtual machine because the amount of resources that I'm giving, for example, 25 GB, all of them are not getting utilized. That is why I can go ahead and create more virtual machines and give more RAM to them and they can use it. So far is okay with everyone. Okay, I know you might have questions, but just hang on to them. What I've explained so far, is this clear to everyone? If you have any questions to what we have talked about till now, please let me know.
Sorry to interrupt. For hardware related, when we are talking about RAM, so I believe we also have to take care of the CPU, CPUs also. How, for an example, I have 8 core of CPUs, right? So how this is going to distribute?
I'll come to
between...
CPUs. Okay, I'll come to CPUs. I'm only talking about RAM for now, just to keep things simple. I'll come to CPUs also. Don't worry about it. Just give me 5-10 minutes. I'll come to it.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks.
Hello. Anyone? Yeah.
Yes, sir. What about my question for the parameter? First of all, secondly, I have 2 more queries. If we have
Avinash, my humble request. Just give me 5 minutes. Let me explain just something, and I'll take your question. Okay, just give me 5 minutes. Is that okay with you?
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Just give me 5 minutes.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
So regarding your query on how the hardware will get the RAM, you will get the answer in 5 minutes. Okay, just give me 5 moments. So coming back to the point, do you have any questions to what I've explained right now, that how I can create the 5th virtual machine or how I can create the 6th, 7th, 8th virtual machine? Is this clear to everyone? Or I should say, if anyone has questions, let me know that how I can create the 5th, how I can create the 6th, 7th, 8th virtual machine.
Sir, can I ask?
Sure, go ahead.
See, if we have assigned a fixed 25 GB of RAM for particular specific hardware, specific machine, so how it is through for 5th allot to for 5th machine?
Because it is not using entire 25 GB of RAM.
But we have fixed allotted now.
You only allocated it. Okay. On my laptop, what you see over here, it has 16 GB of RAM. 16 GB of RAM has been allocated to my laptop. But if I use 16 GB or if I don't use 16 GB, this is my choice. This is my application's choice.
Sir, agree, but it's see, you have one laptop, we have installed 24 GB RAM, right? But you are using 16 GB RAM. But we cannot use the 8 GB RAM on another machine, right? It's for the specific hardware.
Correct.
That is the same also with there, because we have if we are configure the virtual machine, there is some for the specific RAM for the maximum to.
So it is the job of the ESXi to make sure, and that is what I said in the beginning, it is the job of the ESXi to fool the operating system in thinking that it has 25 GB of RAM.
Okay. See, we have assigned for 100 GB RAM for 4 machines, like 25, 25, 25, 25. If my utilization goes to high, so what about the 5th machine?
Good question. Wait for 5 minutes. This is a good question when you say that if I use the entire 25 GB of RAM, what would happen? I was about to come to this point. Okay. Right now, our scenario is that when I give 25 GB of RAM, VMs are not using all 25 GB of RAM. That is why I can create my 5th, 6th, and 8th virtual machine. Okay. Now I talk about the scenario wherein I have one physical machine with 100 GB of RAM. I go ahead and install ESXi on it. And then I create VMs on it. VM 1, 2, 3, 4. All get 25 GB of RAM. And all are using 25 GB of RAM. Okay. Now, can I create a 5th virtual machine, a 6th virtual machine, a 7th or an 8th virtual machine? Yes, no, maybe.
I think no. But my question is, see, we in current scenario, all the machine are using for the 8 GB RAM. So we have created the 5th machine, 6th machine, and 7th machine.
Right.
But after some days, my utilization goes to high, or my primary 4 machines go taken almost 25 GB of RAM.
Right.
So what about the fifth machine, sixth machine, because they are also be production?
Good question. I'll answer it. Give me 5 minutes. Okay. Right now, okay. Just give me 5 minutes and you will have your answer, Avinash. Okay. Good question. So right now I am saying that I have 4 virtual machines. 4 virtual machines. I gave 25 GB of RAM. All of them are using 25 GB of RAM. Can I create 5th, 6th, 7th, and 8th? The answer is yes, you can create. Now the question comes, from where will the RAM come? I mean, if already 100 GB of RAM has been utilized over here, from where these virtual machines get 25 GB of RAM? Okay. What would happen is, when you power on these virtual machines with 25 GB of RAM, they will also go back to ESXi and say, we also need RAM. ESXi will say, I don't have a RAM. I have already given whatever RAM I had, I've already given them. But these VMs will say, no, we also want RAM. If you have given, that's not our problem. We also want RAM. Now you need to give us RAM. From where you get it, it is not our problem. So what would happen? Performance problem on all these virtual machines. Every machine will run into performance issue. Now the question comes, should you as a VMware admin have created 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th virtual machine? Because end of the day, when someone will come and tell to create a virtual machine, it is your responsibility as a VMware admin to create it. It is your responsibility as a VMware admin to manage the environment. If things are not working right, people will come up to you and ask the questions. They will not go to network admin. They will not go to the Linux admin, because Linux admin will say, I do not manage VMware. It is the VMware admin. Go to the other bay. There is that guy sitting over there in that red t-shirt. Go and catch him. It is not me. Okay. Everyone will just, blame the other guy. That is how it happens, So it is your responsibility as a VMware admin, when you see that out of 100 GB, if your utilization goes above 80%, whatever RAM you have in your environment, 100 GB, 200 GB, 2 terabyte, 1.5 terabyte, whatever RAM you have on your physical environment, make sure that the utilization should not go above 80%. If it goes above 80%, you should tell your client, you should tell your manager that either we need to add more RAM or we need to get a new box, because on this one box, I have already created too many virtual machines and now I am running out of resources. I cannot create more virtual machines. If I create more virtual machines, there will be problem and we will run into performance issues. You need to give this in writing to your manager and to your client. If they say, yes, go ahead and provision it, that's fine. Then you go ahead and provision it, because end of the day, it is not my environment. It is not your environment. It is client's environment. If the client is willing to take the risk, you go ahead and take the risk. If the client says, no, you should not create more, let me arrange one more server for you, he'll get one more server for you, you add it, and then you create virtual machines on those servers. But it is responsibility of a VMware admin to at least inform the client that you are running out of resources. Does this answer your question? Anyone has doubts on what I just explained right now? Yeah.
Sir, this is Subhashini.
Yeah.
Sir, how do you know that 80% is coming? So
good
approaching
question.
that, how do you know?
On the UI, on the console. When you log into the VMware console, you will see over there what is the utilization in terms of CPU and RAM, and it will show you in UI. Very clearly, it will show you. There you can read it. Sorry?
We will get any alerts?
Yes, Subhashini. If you configure it, you will get alert.
Okay.
And you can configure alert, Subhashini, on 80%, 75%, whatever the number you give, Subhashini.
Okay.
On that alert, you will get a notification. It can be in form of an email, ticket, whatever you configure it, you will get it.
Okay, thank you.
Go ahead, Avinash.
Yes, I'm waiting for my questions answers. Actually, if we have
to answer your first question, we should reserve memory for the physical box, for the ESXi. That is why we only provision 80%, not entire 100%.
Yes.
Okay. Second question, what would happen if a virtual machine is using only 12 GB of RAM and suddenly it goes to 25 and then it comes back to 13? Then this virtual machine over here has given 25 GB of RAM, is using 25, then it comes down to 12. What would happen during spike?
Yeah.
That is why we give it only that is why we only give it to 80%. If there's any spike, at least you would have room to grow. Not every virtual machine will spike at once. That is very rare. That if you're running 10 virtual machines and all 10 start at sudden start using the entire amount of RAM, that will never happen in the environment. Trust me, I've seen a lot.
Sir, I have facing some scenario like current live scenario. We have created multiple machines, but suddenly I restart the machine and then machine goes down, but not start for showing the error. Its utilization goes too high.
So what would happen is
it's working. Before restarting, all the machines working fine.
So if when you restart an operating system, if the machine is not coming up, you need to open the console and see that why it is not coming up, where it is stuck.
It's so for the hardware related issues like RAM properly RAM not taken off it.
No. So Avinash, we are mixing two things over here. Okay, we are saying that you have a physical machine. Okay, this is your ESXi. On this ESXi, you have many virtual machines over here.
I am talking about the virtual machine actually. I am not talking about the parameter.
Fine.
See,
so if you have one VM, for example, wherein you have given 25 GB of RAM, you restart the operating system and you say that the operating system is not coming up.
Not coming up.
So when you restart the virtual machine, the RAM utilization has gone to 0 now. Right?
Before restarting, it's a utilization to 100%.
So that's fine. No, I mean, if the utilization is 100%, then you need to increase the RAM to maybe 30 GB.
But we don't have any spare RAM.
So that is, you need to tell client about it.
Because we have already used 100 GB.
Correct. So you need to
tell concern. So it's going to the hang. So that's why I'm restarting the machine.
No.
Machine not tapping.
No. This is a wrong approach, Avinash.
Sir, in current live scenario, I am facing multiple times this issue because I'm not using vMotion, vCenter.
So you need to tell your client that your physical machine is running out of resources and they need to give you more RAM or they need to give you a new box. What will you do if their physical machine does not have RAM?
But before restarting, it's working fine. That's why I told you.
See, Avinash, what would happen is there are a couple of things we need to look at. Okay, if you have one VM, okay, you have one VM which is using entire 100% of RAM. Okay, you restart the operating system and now the VM is not coming up. Okay, this is not a problem with ESXi. First thing, because if it was a problem with ESXi, it would have given problem to every other virtual machine.
Agree.
Now, if it's a problem with the operating system, it is not coming up. You need to check that what is the error that you see on the console of the VM. If it says it cannot get the memory, if it says it is having issues with terms of getting memory or not able to get resources, then you need to check at the VMware end. But you need to tell me the exact error. What is the error that you see over there? Because it can be related to operating system, it can be related to an application, it can be related to the ESXi.
It can be related to the RAM related issue because after that I will shut down two machine and then start the machine. That is the.
What was the utilization on your ESXi? What was the RAM utilization on your ESXi on your physical machine?
Because we are using 100%. See,
this is wrong. Why are you using 100%?
Sorry.
Why this is wrong? Why are you using 100%?
Because I am working with the middle level organization, so they are using.
So this is a wrong approach. When you have a physical machine, you should only use 80% of RAM. This is what the VMware recommendation is.
Yeah, I agree, but that's why I'm.
Avinash, it might be possible that due to any application issue or high memory utilization from any application, that could cause 100% utilization of the memory. So first, check.
See, I have resolved the issue, so I will shut down to live machine and then start the main machine.
Avinash, let's take this offline, and you tell me offline that what was the error. You show me your environment, show me the snippets, and I'll tell you on how to approach that scenario so further on.
So I will see the screenshot if I have. I'm sharing with you.
Sure. Share the screenshot with me, share the error message with me, and I'll tell you on how to approach this issue. But again, Avinash, If you have an ESXi with 100 GB of RAM, you should only use it till 80 GB of utilization. After that, you should not use it.
Yes, I agree, but middle level organization, they are not.
But
they
then
don't-
again, this is not your problem.
To be
Then in
honest,
case if
there
the
may
application
be
is not working, you should highlight this to the client.
Yeah.
there may be multiple scenarios as per my understanding.
There could
For
be
an
so many
example,
things.
if you're taking snapshots, I believe this
We cannot take
snapshot
any
topic will
snapshot.
be in
Actually,
later.
I have run only backup utility.
No problem, guys. Let's take this offline. Okay, let's not stop our session only around this discussion. Avinash, let's connect offline. Okay, and I'll talk to you more about it. But as a high level, we should, as VMware recommends, we should only use 80% of resources which are there on the ESXi, be it CPU, be it RAM. If you are flouting, not following the VMware's recommendation, then of course, there's nothing that can be done about it.
Yes, I agree.
Okay. Okay, moving on. The next question. So we have answered to the question on how many VMs can be created. Anyone has any doubts, confusion, question on this question?
Actually, I have one question.
Go ahead.
Type 2 hypervisor, I can able to see my console. I can feel how it could be. How it could be in type 1 hypervisor, how it is the console, how it could be.
So what you do is when you install ESXi on a physical machine, you go to any browser. From that browser, you access the IP over here. It comes up and it has all the details over here.
Okay. How about hypervisor? It could be like a Windows machine. How it could be the graphics, everything.
Yes, it is UI, user interface.
Okay. Okay.
So it is a browser based. I mean, you access it from Linux, you access it from Mac, you access it from Windows. Any other operating system on earth hardly makes any difference. It is now everything on
same
browser
machine
based.
also we can able to access, right?
Sorry?
Some same machine, same hypervisor also we can able to access, right? The console.
Yes. So on that hypervisor, so this ESXi gets an IP. Now you have to access an IP. You access it from any machine that you feel like, any browser you feel like, and then you can manage it.
Suppose I'm telling an hyper type 2, there is a if we install the VMware workstation, if I right click and open, we can able to see the console, right? Like that we can able to see the in type 1 also.
In type 1, when you are installing it on a physical machine, for example on HP, there is a utility called ILO, integrated lights out. You need to access this ILO utility, and then only you will get to see that where that things are.
Okay. Like
because you are installing on a physical machine.
Shortcut.
No.
In Windows there will be shortcuts, right? Like that way it will be there. How it is?
No. So what happens is when you install a physical server in a data center, how do you get to see what is running on that server? You connect to it remotely via RDP or SSH, right? What if that server is not available on network? What if the RDP is not working? What if the SSH is not working? Then what you do is you take an ILO connection. ILO connection is basically out of band management port. Okay, that is at the back of the server, HP server, you have an ILO port, you connect RJ45 port to it, and then you configure an IP to it. When you hit that IP on the network, the ILO screen comes up and it will show you where the server is exactly stuck. And then you would have options of, managing it. Okay.
Do you have any chance to show that one?
No, I would not be able to show you because I do not have a physical machine to show it to you. But if I show you on Google, this is how it will look like. So if you just go to HP ILO and hit the enter key, go to images. And you should see a port somewhere. This is what it looks like in HP ILO port at the back of the server. So here you connect a cable and then you go to the ILO window and you configure. This is the way you configure the IP and everything. So when you hit that URL, you will be able to see out of management. That is a physical machine.
Okay. How it is in the browser console?
Browser console, it looks like normal. I'll show it to you in some time. When I install ESXi, you will get to know about it.
Okay, thanks.
Coming back to the question, how many VMs can I create on one ESXi? Is everyone clear with it? Or if you have any questions, let me know. It is basically 80%. whatever amount of RAM that you have on your physical machine, for example, 1 terabyte, 2 terabyte, 800 GB, 700 GB, whatever RAM you have, make sure the physical utilization of your resources should not go above 80%. Till the time you are below 80%, everything will be okay and you will keep smiling as a VMware admin. Okay. Okay, so we have answered this question on how many VMs I can create. Now, we also know that how will VM get to know about the resources? It is basically the ESXi, which is managing it and controlling it. Every virtual machine will only see what has been created or what has been given during the time of creation. Okay. Now, the question comes, how does the communication happen between virtual machine and outside world? Okay, so you have a physical machine. You have an HP server. And then on this HP server, you install ESXi. Now on this ESXi, you have created one virtual machine. For example, VM01, you installed Windows operating system on it, and then you installed IIS on it. And now you are logged into this Windows machine and you open google.com. How will Google get resolved over here? Okay, basically what happens is when you create a virtual machine and when you give the resources, these are virtual resources. So here you give virtual CPU, you give virtual RAM, you give virtual hard drive, and you give a virtual network card. Okay, when the request comes in, it goes to the ESXi. ESXi has got processes like CPU scheduler. Okay, and many other processes. It is the job of the ESXi to understand this virtual request, this virtual instruction which is coming from the virtual machine. It goes to ESXi. It is the responsibility of the ESXi to understand this and then pass it on to the physical CPU that we have over here, to the physical RAM that we have over here. So ESXi is the one who is doing the translation between virtual to physical and physical to virtual. Okay, and then the request, there will be a network card over here, and then via this network card the request will go out. When the response comes back in, it comes in this way. Are we clear over here that how the communication happens at a very high level? Okay, so it is basically the request, the virtual instruction from the virtual machine going to ESXi. ESXi captures it, sends it to the physical resources on the server, and then it goes out, for example, when trying to access Google or trying to ping any other machine, and then it comes back in and the query lands back to the virtual machine. Doubts, confusion, question regarding this point? If not, then let's move on. Okay, I'll take it as no. Now, how do we download the ISO? Let me talk about this point. So all that you have to do is go to Google and just type download vSphere. You go to VMware portal. Here you see the versions which are supported right now. You see ESXi over here. You say go to downloads. You see the ISO over here. You need to have a user account. You need to log in over here, and then only it will let you log in. Then it will only let you download. So this is the ISO. This is of 600 MB. You just download the ISO, install it directly on the hardware, and you are good to go.
Is it free?
It is free, but you need to create an account. You need to have license. It will by default work for 60 days, and after 60 days, it will ask for the license key.
Okay, okay. The how it could be installation and all? It's a normal one.
I'll show it to you. Okay. So we understand on how we download the ISO. Now let me talk about the HA kind of thing. What would happen if one ESXi goes down at a very high level? Okay, I'm not going to go in depth because this is a very huge topic. So when you have two servers, okay, both of them have ESXi 01. This is ESXi 02. You have virtual machines which are running over here, and few are running over here. Okay, if this ESXi goes down due to any reason, hardware, problem with VM, problem in the data center, any reason you think of, in the world, and just think about it that this server has gone down, this physical machine has gone down. What would happen is all these virtual machines which are running over here, they will restart and automatically go to the other server. They will restart and automatically go and power on this server. This is how high availability works. Okay, there are so many things which happen in the background. I will not be talking about it right now. It is just to give you an overview on how it works. Okay.
In general, how it could be in hypervisor to hypervisor or virtual machine to virtual machine?
It goes from the VMs migrate from one ESXi to another ESXi.
Okay, in general, they will configure like that only, not
Correct.
single machine to single machine.
No, it is the ESXi failing. All the VMs will fail over to the other ESXi and they will start working. Okay. Now, let me talk about three terms which are very important to understand, and they are sometimes a little confusing. ESXi. ESXi is a hypervisor, a type 1 hypervisor from VMware, okay, which gets installed directly on the hardware and then you create virtual machines on it. This is ESXi. The other term is vCenter. What is vCenter? It is called VMware vCenter or Virtual Center. This is basically a management console. For example, if you have 1000 ESXis, how will you manage 1000 ESXis? You cannot log into every ESXi on the browser, open 1000 tabs and manage them. That is not possible. You need one place to manage 1000 ESXis. What is that one place from where you manage everything? vCenter. So vCenter is basically your management plane. This is one window, you log into it and you manage everything from here. When I say everything, I literally mean everything. Okay, ESXi, virtual machine, storage, networking, troubleshooting, everything you do from one vCenter window. This is again browser based. You open on any browser, it works okay, be it on Linux, Windows, Mac, whichever machine you are on, hardly makes
So
any
in
difference.
vCenter, if we expand, we can be able to see the all EXI servers.
Everything.
In each ESXi, how many VMs are there?
Everything.
We can, okay.
Everything you would see it. Whatever you have in your virtual environment, everything you will get to see, configure, check, and from vCenter you can do everything. This is one window which you will, when you go into the office, you open vCenter, spend your 9 hours on vCenter, and then you log off your machine and come back home. This is your everyday job.
You can able to log in through the vCenter only.
Correct. So every day you manage everything from vCenter. This is one-stop shop. Like in AD, you log into your Active Directory, you have consoles over there of creating user and creating everything. You do one window, does everything for you. In VMware world, vCenter is the one which is the central console.
Hello, sir. This is Subhashini.
Go ahead.
Sir, we will move to little bit back, sir. That is high availability. This is my personal questions. Please don't.
Go ahead.
Sir, when we are going to high availability, if we first server is shut down and we are taking second server, okay, at that time, what about the second server work? Who will do that second server work, sir?
So what happens is, Subhashini, when you are configuring high availability, you need to make sure that you have enough resources so that when your virtual machines move to the other server, the other server should have required amount of CPU, RAM that it should be able to give to these virtual machines.
Oh, okay.
This is the responsibility of VMware admin to make sure that you do not run into constraint issues. There are so many things, which are done in the background. Subhashini, I would love to talk more about it, but due to time, I cannot do it.
Yeah, so, okay, sir. That is my personal question. I'm doing that certification course now. So whatever I have in mind, I'm asking. So please.
Thank you. No problem. But I hope you understand my concern. I cannot tell you in depth.
Yeah. Okay, sir. Thank you.
I'll definitely talk. I talk everything about this in the class. So when we do the course, I'll tell you exactly, step by step what happens in the background. Okay.
Okay, sir.
All right. Now moving on to the next point. Now let me begin with the demo. Let me begin with the installation. Okay. too much of paint, too much of everything. So what I've done right now is, this is my home lab. Here I've created a domain controller. On this domain controller, I've configured DHCP so that it will be able to lease IP addresses. Here I've configured a SAN. This is a virtual SAN. Someone asked me a question about SAN that, can you show me the functionality on how the SAN exactly works? SAN costs too much. The price of the SAN is too high. Any institute, if you even do a virtual, I should say, if you do an official training of VMware, they would also not show you a physical SAN. They also run everything in VMware Cloud Director, and they show you everything over here. Okay, so yeah, so but I would show you everything, on how to handle it from VMware environment. Now let me begin an installation of ESXi, and let me show you on how the installation happens and how you access your ESXi. Again, the training is for you to learn VMware, ESXi Hypervisor, not to learn VMware Workstation. Okay. Sorry, one more point I was about to tell, and I got I moved over here. My bad. So we understand what ESXi, what vCenter is. Okay. Now the question is, there is one more term which is called vSphere. What is vSphere? Now I need to tell you that. So you know what ESXi is. It is basically the type 1 hypervisor that we install directly on the hardware. We know what vCenter is, from where we manage everything. What is vSphere? So if I talk about, and if I say, what is MS Office? You would say that MS Office is a bundle. In this bundle, what you get? You get PowerPoint, you get Excel, you get OneNote, you get Outlook, you get so many things on earth, when it comes to Microsoft Office. When you install Microsoft Office, basically you are installing PowerPoint, you are installing Word, you are installing Excel, you are installing Outlook, you are installing OneNote, you are installing so many other applications. But all these applications have been bundled together, and they are called as MS Office. Same is applicable with VMware. ESXi and vCenter, they are bundled together, and this bundle is called vSphere. Okay, so when I say vSphere, it is basically the name of the bundle. In this bundle, you have ESXi and vCenter. Is this clear to everyone? And this is what you see. This is what you get in a bundle. If you take the Enterprise Plus, all these components are available in the bundle. We are basically only targeting vSphere and vCenter, but all these options are also available in a bundle. So when I say vSphere, always remember this is a bundle's name. Just like Microsoft Office, this is name of a bundle. You basically deploy these components, vCenter, ESXi, you deploy. Okay. Now, let me move on to the installation real quick. Okay, the agenda is not to teach you how VMware Workstation works. Okay, I'm not here to teach you on how VMware Workstation is, what it can do for you, because I also don't know much about it. I only know the basics to get my lab working. I am using VMware Workstation because I can configure my lab. I can show you on how ESXi works. And to do that, I am using VMware Workstation only to show you on how ESXi works, only on how to build my lab, because I do not have a physical lab. I have a virtual lab. Okay. So what I would do is I would just go ahead, keep hitting next, choose the ESXi 8 installer. ESXi 8 by default, I mean, it's the latest one. Okay. In terms of versioning, I give a name, for example, temp ESXi. I give the processors. I give 16 processor. I give 64 GB of RAM. I install only 10 GB of hard drive because 10 GB is more than enough. And I hit finish. And I power on the virtual machine. Okay. And I begin with the installation. Like when you install Windows, it will show you that, Windows is loading files. When you install Linux, it shows you that, Linux installation, it is loading files. So right now what it is doing is, it is just reading the files from the ISO. This is what it is doing right now. I have configured DHCP over here. So it will be able to pick up an IP because I have brought this machine and on this machine on the same network. So what I've done over here is I'm running both of them on VMnet 16, just to make sure that they're in the same network and they can easily talk to one another. Okay. Now the machine is booting from the ISO, the ESXi 8 ISO that we downloaded from VMware. If you install ESXi on a physical machine or VMware workstation, the installation remains the same. There is no difference in the installation. Here it says that you're installing VMware ESXi 8. This is the internal build number. This says VMware Inc. because I'm running on VMware workstation. If you had an HP server or a Dell server, it would show you HP server and the model number. This shows the CPU that it is getting, and this shows the amount of memory that it is getting. I've given like 64 GB of RAM. So for this machine, 64 GB is the allocated amount of RAM. It cannot go above 64 GB because 64 limit is the limit for this virtual machine. Okay. Right now it is booting from the ISO. It will take a minute and then we will begin with the installation. Again, if you install ESXi on the physical machine, the way I am going to do right now, exactly the same way you will do it. There is absolutely no difference over there. Okay. If you install VMware,
64 GB in the sense in your machine, you have 64 GB RAM?
Yes, I have 256 GB of RAM on my machine.
Oh,
Sir,
okay.
Sir, what about if I have Windows 11 operating system, what about that one? If before installing, we have to uninstall that one, huh?
No. So what you have to do is, for example, if you have a desktop or if you have a laptop and if you're running Windows 11 on it, then you need to install VMware Workstation. You install VMware Workstation, type 2 hypervisor, and then in that type 2 hypervisor, you create virtual machine.
Okay, sir. Okay.
Okay, this is again, Subhashini, not recommended for production, only for learning, testing, playing around.
Okay. Okay, sir.
Okay, so it is right now loading all the services that it has by default in the background, and it will just take a minute to come up. Okay, and here it is showing me right now that what version you are installing. If you had an HP server, it would have shown you HP, which is the processor that you're running right now, and how much RAM you have given. Okay. In the end, it just waits for a minute and then it will come back up. So let's wait for a minute. Now this is the screen. Someone was asking me that how do I see that what is running on ESXi? So when you open the HP ILO, this is what you will see. Okay, so a physical
how you got
machine.
a 256 GB RAM in your physical machine?
Sorry?
256 GB RAM. Is it
Yeah.
laptop or?
No, it's a desktop. It's a server. I went to a local market over here in Delhi that's called Nehru Place, wherein you have every computer thing. So from there, I bought this Xeon server. This is a 3rd generation Xeon server, and I got 256 GB of RAM. I have options of upgrading it to 1 TB.
Okay. How much cost it could be?
It costed me 3 lakhs without the hard drive.
Okay, sir. Okay, thanks.
Okay, now here we come to the welcome to the installation. Okay, this is a very important screen to understand. Okay, this is absolutely paramount that you understand what is written over here. The first line is a very gentle one that says welcome to the installation. Thank you, we are welcoming over here. Now the second point, VMware ESXi installs on most systems, but only systems on VMware compatibility guide are supported. Consult the VMware compatibility guide at so link. Select the operation to perform. Do you want to continue? Hit enter, or if you want to cancel out, hit escape. Okay, what it means over here is like what I have done, right? You take any computer on earth, okay? You take any machine on earth, and if you try installing ESXi on it, there are very high chances that ESXi will get installed on it. Okay, any machine on earth you try installing ESXi, there are very high chances that it will get installed. But again, what would happen is when you start running your production on it, someday, not today, not tomorrow, not maybe 3 months, 4 months, 6 months, 1 year down the line, but someday you will run into some issue. That's the nature, that's the law of the land. Someday in IT you will get stuck. When you get stuck, what would happen? You have to reach out to vendor. You will call up VMware technical support and you will tell VMware technical support, I need your help. My machine is down. Get me this machine back and running. VMware support, what they will do, that support guy, I was also once a support guy. Support guy only says one thing. Support guy says, give me the log bundle for anything and everything, right? This is the bread and butter of the technical support engineer. It will say, give me the log bundle of this ESXi. Log bundle has the history of the machine in and out. Whatever you can think of, in terms of capturing the details of that ESXi server, this log bundle has everything. When it was installed, how many data stores, which VM, what is the temp ID, what are the logs, how many logs you have, make, model, server, license key, everything this log bundle has. Okay, so this
secure while giving this log bundle to the vendor.
Sorry,
is it secure?
You are trusting their technology and you cannot give the log bundle to them. You are running VMware, so you're trusting them, right? You are trusting their software. And you're
some
calling...
banking companies, sir, they will work on, right? If
No,
they
no,
give
no.
this
So
bundle and
what would happen is, in those scenarios, they take advanced support wherein they do not share the log bundle, and they tell the engineer, they have a resident engineer. So they ask VMware to send a guy permanently at their site.
Okay.
So there they are paying a lot more. So if you pay VMware or any other vendor in the world, they'll do everything whatever you say, right? So what would happen is, you give them the log bundle. This log bundle has history of ESXi, everything it has. As soon as this technical support engineer will get to know that you are running on unsupported hardware, the hardware that you have is not certified for the ESXi version 8 that you are running, he will close the ticket and he will not give you the support. He will only send you one-liner email stating that your hardware is not on the compatibility guide. Sorry, we cannot give you support. He will share screenshots with you, and that is the end of the story. Okay. So what it says over here, this first line says that when you are installing ESXi, you agree and you understand that your hardware is compatible. Now, how do you get to know that your hardware is compatible or not? For that, what you have to do is, you have to open Google, and on Google, you have to type VMware compatibility guide. You have to go to this URL. When you go to this URL, and you choose ESXi 8, because the version that you're installing is ESXi 8. And now, for example, you are installing an HP server. The ESXi, you're installing it on HP server, and the HP model is DL380, for example. And you hit update and result view. It will show you all the it will show you, let me come over here. HP, I choose HP and I do update and view. So it will show you all the HP servers which are certified to run ESXi 8. You need to make sure that whichever brand of hardware you have, HP, IBM, Fujitsu, Lenovo, IBM, whatever on earth you have in terms of hardware, on this website over here, you should be able to see your server. If you see your server over here with ESXi 8 mentioned over here, that means you have a compatible hardware. If you do not see the version over here, that means you are not on the compatible version. If you are not on the compatible version, VMware support engineer, this guy over here, will decline your support, and he will say that you are not running on the supported hardware. This is what ESXi says on the very first screen. Before you even start the installation of the ESXi, VMware is telling you that you agree, you understand that you will be installing ESXi on supported hardware. This is the URL. Go and check your hardware if it's there or not. If it is there, hit continue, hit enter, and proceed. Is this screen clean? I mean, is this
based on version, we need to go for hardware? Based on hardware purpose, we need to go for the version. How it is
based on the hardware, you go for ESXi, and on the ESXi you create virtual machine. Okay, is this message clear to everyone? What we see on the screen? If you have any doubts, let me know. I'll be more than happy to repeat myself. Okay, I'll take that as a yes, and I'll continue on. So I hit enter and I proceed. Terms and conditions, you agree or you don't agree, you have to agree. I mean, you cannot make any changes. You say, no, VMware, make some changes for me. This is the license agreement. You have to agree to it. You hit F11 and you move on. Now it will show you the list of the hard drive where you can install your ESXi. So during my ESXi, when I was provisioning this, I gave 10 GB of hard drive. This is what I see over here. It is highlighted in yellow. I hit the enter key, I continue, and it now talks about keyboard layout. Depending on the country where you are, you have, keyboard layouts, whichever one you are comfortable with, you can choose that. By default, here in India, we are comfortable with US default, so we'll choose that. And now we have to give a root password. Why a root password? Because ESXi is backed by Linux kernel. ESXi is backed by Linux kernel because Linux is the only operating system which is available free in the world and open source. So you download Linux, make changes to it, configure it to the kernel as you feel like. Okay, so I specify the password over here. I'll give welcome at 123 W in caps. Now it is important that your passwords should map. There is no way that you can see that what these characters are. They would not show you, but here you see it's written passwords do not match. So when you hit the right password, then it will say passwords match. And now you hit enter and you continue. Okay, here it says that you are about to install ESXi 8 on the hard drive. All the partition, every data, whatever you have will go away. You will be, it'll all be lost. Do you want to do this? I say F11. Yes, I want to do this. Now my installation begins. It'll take a minute to complete the installation, and then I'll reboot. Once I reboot, I'll get an IP on this ESXi. This IP will be pingable from here. I should be able to ping the IP, and then on the browser, I will be able to access the machine. And I will then quickly show you on how we log into the ESXi, and then we can create a lot of options over there. So just wait for a minute and this should get going. Again, if you install it on a physical machine, this is the way you need to do it. Okay, it has all the details over here.
vCenter we need to install separately?
Correct. Correct. We need to install it separately. Now, while this is coming up, let me quickly show you on LinkedIn that, why is VMware still relevant? You might have a question that is VMware still relevant in today's world? My answer is a big yes. Why yes? Let me show it to you. Okay, while this is going on, let this go on. This is my LinkedIn profile. So what you do is you type hiring VMware. Okay. And then you go to post. Okay. And then you sort it by date posted, maybe by last month. Now you see people over here written that DXC is hiring VMware. I am hiring VMware admin, hiring VMware in Poland, VMware hiring, senior VMware hiring. You see so many. Okay. The other thing that you can do, this is about post. Okay. About hiring VMware. The other thing that you can mention is about something like this. You could mention hiring technical support engineer VMware. Okay, and then you go to post. Okay, maybe you say past 24. Okay, let me do this again. I say hiring technical support engineer VMware, and I go to post. Now you see over here, people are written that hiring for technical support engineer, apply now, apply now, apply now. You have so many people written over here. You can always reach out to them and you can check with them that why VMware, I can help you. The other thing that you do is, again, do this when you're searching on LinkedIn for a job. So you come over here, you type VMware administrator. Okay, sorry, not to post. You should go to change it to job, change it to jobs. Okay, you see VMware administrator. So many people are hiring for VMware administrator. TCS, Aon, everyone basically needs a VMware administrator.
This vSphere and VMware both compatible with both are
it's one and the same thing. So I told you, no, vSphere is the bundle name.
Okay. No. vSphere.
Yeah. So what is vSphere?
Oh, sorry, Hyper-V. Sorry.
Hyper-V is a different technology altogether.
Different
right?
technology,
Hyper-V is backed by Microsoft.
Yes. If one technology if you learn, we can able to another technology. It could be
Should
easier.
be. It'll be very easy for you to know Hyper-V if you already know VMware. Okay. So you can search this way, and you will get to know so many things, that wherein people are hiring for technical support engineers VMware. Okay. Let me show you one more thing. I mean, this is very important. Let me show you a couple of things. This is as per VMware. VMware says that by 2024 they will have 180 million workloads running in the private cloud. Private cloud means your on-premises environment, and 244 million running on the public cloud. That means VMware running on AWS, Google, Oracle, Alibaba, IBM, all these public clouds. This is a huge number of workloads. We are talking about 180 million virtual machines, 244 virtual machines, million virtual machines. This is huge. I mean, you're talking about almost about 450 million virtual machines, VMware virtual machines running in the world. Of course, people will need VMware engineers. Without VMware engineers, who is going to manage them? Yeah. One
Actually,
last
I
thing.
hear the AWS cloud also using the VM.
Everyone uses it. Every
VM
cloud
only.
on earth uses
Their
it.
instances.
Yes, everyone uses it. Now let me show you one last thing, and that should be, and then we can go back to that window. You see over here, the revenue. This is VMware's revenue. Okay. In 2008, their revenue was around 5 billion. And now they have touched 15 billion, or almost about 15 billion. Their revenue is not dripping. If the revenue of a company is dipping, then you think that there are chances that the company might go bankrupt, or company is not innovating, company is not relevant, the technology is not relevant. Every year, they are growing. So I don't see a reason that why VMware as a company would fail, or why things would not work. You have so many jobs available out there. The installation has been done. I'm hitting enter to reboot. Revenue is growing. You see so many posts on LinkedIn. You see so many jobs on LinkedIn for VMware. And trust me that when we talk about package of VMware of a vSphere admin, you will always get double digit. You will not get in a single digit. VMware admin is a very hot technology to be asked. I know people working in VMware as a level 2 engineer getting 18, 17 per year. So that is very normal.
This training is for basic or how it is?
So what I will be doing in training is I will be basically teaching you this. So when you go to vmware.com website and you say that you want to learn vSphere, so the course that they have is Install, Configure, Manage, ICM. Okay. In this course, they teach you VMware. They teach you everything. Introduction, what hypervisor is, ESXi, deploying vCenter, networking, storage, virtual machine, whatever is written over here. I will teach you everything by default, whatever is written over here. I will also teach you things which are not written over here. There are few things which I think are very important that you need to know, and they are not written over here, right? I will also be telling you all those things as well. Okay. So for example, vCenter HA, high availability of vCenter, network port binding when it comes to storage mapping. There are so many other things, which are not mentioned over here. Of course, I will be telling, and I will be talking about all these things. Whatever is written over here, this is by default. Eyes closed, I will be, talking about it. So now you see that, my ESXi has been rebooted and it gets an IP. Now all that I have to go is I have to just go to my browser, type in the IP 10.10.10.10.73 and hit the enter key. It says a potential warning because ESXi comes with a self-signed certificate that Mozilla is not sure about, Firefox is not sure about. That is why it is giving me a warning. I say that's fine. I understand what this certificate is. And you get to the ESXi. Now you log in with root because it is backed by Linux kernel, and you define the password that you gave during the installation, that is welcome at 123. When you log into the first time, VMware asks you, to join their program, wherein all your VMware bugs will be automatically sent to VMware. And this is a customer improvement program. You say okay, you join, and this is how you log into your ESXi. And Subhashini, to answer your question, this is from where you see everything, how much is in use, how much is
Yeah,
not in use, and from
sir,
here
very
you get to know.
excited. Thank you so much.
No problem, Subhashini, no problem. So this is where you create your virtual machines, you map your storage. I mean, I can talk about it for a week continuously, but yeah, due to limitation of time, ESXi, I cannot talk much. So yeah, there are so many things that you can do in ESXi, and here you see everything, what you have, what you don't have, and all
Where
of
we
that.
can add the virtual machines here.
So you need to go over here and you need to create a virtual machine from here.
Okay, okay.
Okay, but again, you never create it from the ESXi, you do it from the vCenter. So you deploy a vCenter and then you manage everything from vCenter. So as I mentioned, you go to the office, you open the vCenter browser in a browser, you watch it for 9 hours, and then when you're off to go home, you close that window and then you come back home. For entire 9 hours, you only watch one window, which is vCenter, and you do everything from there.
Okay, you can show the vCenter installation also, right?
Everything. We will do everything. Whatever is written over here, installing, configuring ESXi, vCenter, how do you do it, manage logs, networking, storage, anything and everything we will do about it.
vCenter is separate application, or we need to install like OS only, that also?
It's a dedicated appliance altogether. So you see over here, vCenter, you need to download this. So this is another 8 GB ISO that you need to download, and then you install it.
Is it also like ESXi server?
Yeah. No, it is not it's a software. It's only a virtual machine, like a software. That brings me to the end of the course. I'm sorry.
Where we install that one in our local machine, or we need to install in the ESXi server only?
It is done on the ESXi server itself. You create a virtual machine and then you create it. And just wanted to quickly show you guys one more thing. That is, if you have any questions, any doubts, he's the guy Amit to reach out to. This is his phone number. If you have any queries, anything that you want to ask about, any questions you have.
Explain the course details and all.
Everything. So course details. Course details is something that I showed you right now. It is the official link, whatever it is there.
What about duration, fee?
Yeah, duration will be around 1.5 months. And we do it on a weekend basis. Every weekend, we'll have the class on a Saturday and a Sunday. 3 hours on Saturday, 3 hours on Sunday. I don't want to, like burden you too much. So we take small baby steps so that, you understand everything. And yeah, in 6 weekends, we generally complete it. If not, 7 weekends should be good enough to complete everything. And yeah, rest like fees. When we begin with the batch, Amit is a guy who can tell you everything. This is his phone number and he's available. You can ping him. If he's not answering, send him a WhatsApp. Dude, why are you not responding?
So definitely we will demand it.
Yeah, Avinash, go ahead.
Are you providing the lab also, or just only for training?
I think for lab, again, you need to check with Amit. Generally, we don't have it, but in case if you do need lab, then Amit can probably, try to somehow, help you out.
Okay. For labs, HYL labs will be applicable. I mean, will it be a very helpful HYL labs?
HYL is something whereas everything is pre-configured for you. You cannot install an ESXi, you cannot configure a vCenter over there. Though I will show you everything like what I showed you today.
I agree, but for the hands-on, we can try it. That's why I told you.
Sure. For a hands-on lab, of course, you can try it, on how to create a VM, to view the options, what the settings are. For all those things, hands-on lab is good enough, absolutely good enough.
In backup, it also provided like VMware, like VM backup, VMware backup, and then vCenter backup also.
Sure, if you want to see the backup, definitely I'll be talking about it, like Veeam, like on how to take a backup from Veeam, very easy to take it up.
Yeah, just only for the we have installed the vCenter on specific machine. If machine goes down, so what about the back? When we can take on the backup?
I'll talk everything. I'll talk about everything. How you take a backup, what you do to make sure that your vCenter is up. If it goes down, what would happen? How do you bring it up? Of course, we'll talk about everything in the course.
Amit also be there.
Sorry.
Amit also be in this call or not?
Amit is there on the call, but I think he's on mute right now. Maybe if you have any questions, you can reach out to him. If you have any questions related to management.
No, I'm talking about the fee or the some.
I think for that you should just reach out to him on WhatsApp.
Okay, great.
But I guess call is not
We have
connected
the
to
cloud
Amit,
also in VMware.
Hello.
One at a time, guys. Sorry, I lost you guys. Sorry.
No, call is not connecting to Amit actually. I have tried.
Send him a
twice.
WhatsApp. Send him a WhatsApp.
Okay, then fine.
Just send him a WhatsApp and tell him that, call me dude, call me now. Just send something like this.
Hello, sir. This is Subhashini.
Yes, Subhashini.
Sir, we should complete the certification course, then only we get job, or
No. You don't have to complete the certification. So good point that you raised, Subhashini. So to do the certification, you at least need 70,000. Okay. So generally, companies pay for it. I would recommend you should not pay for VMware certification from your own pocket. If you even do certification, it does not mean that you would.
Point here, actually, certified guy get hired easily, I guess.
I do not agree to it. I don't agree to it.
Actually, I got the feedback from the interviewer. He said rather than hiring a complete knowledge guy, we need the certified.
No.
That was the feedback.
No. I do not agree with it, because
Sir,
every company knows about it, that VMware certification cost 80,000. And as an admin, I used to very bluntly say to the interviewer, I don't have 80,000. You give me 80,000, I'll complete my certification. If you want to check my knowledge, ask me questions. Why don't you ask me about the environment, on how you manage it and how you keep it up? I mean, what is something that you have to do with the certification? I agree, certification is important, but it has a cost associated to it.
Also cracking the interview.
Sorry?
Also preparing for cracking the interview.
I give you points on what to write on your resume. So at the end of the course, I'll tell you on what you can write on your resume that will, so that you at least have some pointers that you are doing some VMware job, you have some VMware tasks that you do at your work. So I'll do talk about it. And whatever I teach you, I teach you, if you just revise that, you do not have to go through any dump questions to mug up so that you clear your interview. Whatever I'm teaching you, just follow that, and you will blow the interviewer away. Trust me.
With this training, we can level up to level 2. How it is? How many years we can?
I would say L1 plus, basic L2.
Basic
L1 plus and L2, because again, you need hands-on experience. So what I would be showing you, so at least you can show that 2 years, 2.5 years that you have been working. You will be able to easily show that.
Okay. Is it a cloud also there in VM?
Yes, you can run VMware on AWS, Azure, Google, Oracle, Alibaba, IBM.
Okay.
Yeah, hi, Ghanshyam here. Can you explain VMware network switches in the most simplified way? Because it's, in the VMware, sometimes it's very hard to understand the language.
So what happens is, if I talk about VMware networking, there are two kinds of switches that they create: standard switch and distributed switch. Distributed switch is a centralized managed networking, and standard switch is a per ESXi networking. If I talk about networking, Ghanshyam, it will take me a lot of time, because you have to teach you everything.
No, in brief only.
So think about it that let me share something with you. So if I have to talk about ESXi networking, so think about it. This is your physical machine. On your physical machine, you have one network card. This is your PNIC1. Okay. You create a virtual machine over here, VM01, and you give virtual network card over here, right? VNIC1. So what would happen is, this VNIC is connected to a port group, which is called VM network. Okay. This port group is connected to the vSwitch 0. This vSwitch is connected to PNIC1, and then your data goes out. And when it gets a response, it comes back in the same fashion. This is what standard switch will do for you. And this is how the basic networking works. Again, there are so many things in the background that I have to talk about it before I say that, there's so many things. This is a very high over level that I told you.
Okay. Thank you.
All right, guys, any other question that you have? Feel free to shoot.
I joined late. Will we getting the recording session of this?
Yeah, I shared a number for Amit. Were you able to capture his number, or shall I share it to you?
Yes, I have that number.
Yeah,
But
just
on this WhatsApp group, we will not be getting the recording session, right?
So you just send a WhatsApp message to Amit on that number that I shared with you,
Okay,
and you
okay.
ask him.
All right. Thank you.
No problem. Any other question, guys, you have? Feel free. Or are we good?
What about RAID configuration and all?
So RAID is not needed. RAID is needed at the storage end. So when we get the storage from, when we get LUNs, the raw capacity that we get from ESX, from the storage, they configure RAID at our end. In ESXi, we don't configure RAID.
Okay, but in hardware level, they can configure, is it?
The storage guy will do that on their storage. They will configure RAID.
But in a ESS server also, in server physically, we will have 4 to 5 hard disks, right?
Not
like
needed.
that way I'm asking.
Not needed. In ESXi, you don't need to have any hard drive.
Only single hard drive.
Not even that. If you don't have the hard drive, that's also fine. You can install ESXi on USB flash card. That is also supported. Any other question, guys? Anything else that you would like to know about? Any other question that pops into your head?
Will you train Azure as well? Azure with the DevOps or else, cloud platforms like Azure DevOps?
My bread and butter is VMware. I only teach VMware.
Okay, fine.
All right, guys, I'll then stop the recording and we'll call it a day.
Sir, one last question.
Go ahead.
Subhashni, after level 1, what is your suggestion to do second level 2, sir?
So in VMware, you have many things to do. Right? So what you will be learning right now is a basic management. Okay?
Yeah, sorry.
Once you do the basic management on how you configure it, then you go deep dive. Then you go into performance. Then you go into architecting it well. Then you understand the deep dives and on how exactly the performance. How do you get your environment up right? Then you move on to the next VMware product. Right now you're learning vSphere. Then you now move on to the next product. Then you can learn on how VMware can be migrated to cloud. How other products integrate. So there are so many things to learn.
Yes,
VMware has close to about 150 plus products.
Actually, I'm from Java background. So how which one in it will help for me? Like
so you can learn about Spring Boot. You can learn about there's a VMware course which talks about on how you can have applications running on VMware. So if you're from Java background, you can learn more about that. How can Java applications run effectively on VMware? There are guides, about 100 pages which only talk about running Java workloads on VMware, on how you should run Java workloads on VMware. You can go through those guides. There are certifications about development that you can look into. VMware development certification that would help you a lot.
Thank you so much for your suggestion.
It is very good that you're from the Java background. It will help you a lot.
Yeah, sir. Thank you.
Great. All right, guys, I'll stop the recording.